Hello, and a warm welcome to Reddit Echo.
In a university town, life exists in a bubble. Your world is lectures, deadlines, cheap coffee, and the small circle of friends you see every day. You exist in a state of comfortable ignorance about the lives humming just outside your own. You assume everyone is caught in the same current, that the worst thing that can happen is a failed exam. This is the story of how that bubble burst for me and my friends. It was last year. The semester was in full swing. There was a guy, Kevin. He wasn't in my core group, but he was a familiar face, someone you'd share a beer with at a campus party, a classmate you'd nod to in the hallway. He lived in one of the dorms on the other side of our sprawling campus, a campus that was unique because it backed right up against the foothills of a dense, green mountain range. It was a beautiful place, a blend of academia and wilderness. We all knew about the natural springs at the far edge, a popular, though unofficial spot for students to cool off. I hadn't seen Kevin around for a few days, but that wasn't unusual. People got busy, buried in projects. Life in the bubble continued, uninterrupted. The disruption came on a quiet weeknight. We were all in our shared house, scattered between the living room and our bedrooms in that post-dinner lethargy. Then, one of my housemates, Mark, let out a low, sharp curse from his phone. "Guys, look at this," he said, his voice tight. He turned his screen towards us. It was a post from the university's official Facebook page. The language was careful, bureaucratic, but the words were chilling. It reported that 2 individuals had been found deceased in one of the mountain springs on the remote edge of campus. The post urged anyone with information to come forward. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. It was a shocking, tragic piece of news, but it felt distant, a headline about strangers. Then another housemate, Chloe, spoke up, her voice a nervous tremor. "Hey, has anyone heard from Kevin lately?" The room went silent. Texts were sent. Calls went straight to voicemail. A quick check with his doormates confirmed our growing dread. Kevin hadn't been seen for days. He was officially missing. The distant tragedy was suddenly rushing towards us, a wave of cold, terrifying reality. The next few hours were a blur of frantic, helpless energy. Panic mode. We were a whirlwind of group chats and speculation. My housemates and I decided to go over to Kevin's dorm to be with his roommates to share the awful vigil. The air there was thick with a nauseating mix of grief and anxiety. Meanwhile, I was on the phone with other friends who had driven straight to the springs. Their reports were grim. The area was taped off. Police cars, their lights casting silent, swirling blue and red hues against the trees, blocked the access road. Our friends couldn't get close. The bodies, they were told, had already been removed, taken to the county coroner for autopsy. We were left with nothing but the chilling void of the unknown. Then, the initial identification reports started to trickle out through unofficial channels. The names weren't officially released, but the details matched. And then we saw it. A name. Misspelled. A single letter off, but unmistakable. It was him. Kevin. The bubble wasn't just burst, it was shattered. The familiar face from the party was now a name in a tragic news brief. All we could do was wait. The wait was its own special kind of torture, our minds cycling through every terrible possibility. The official story finally came out a day later, pieced together from the police report and the autopsy findings. The truth was both simpler and more horrifying than any of our dark speculations. Kevin and his friend had gone swimming at the spring the previous weekend. It was supposed to be a fun escape, but the springs, for all their beauty, were deceptively dangerous. Strong, hidden undercurrents, cold temperatures that could cause cramping, steep, slippery rock shelves that dropped off into deep, dark water. They had drowned. Their bodies had remained in the water for almost a week before being discovered. The report was clinical, but the details were graphic and haunting. The prolonged immersion had caused their bodies to bloat terribly, and the aquatic life in the spring crayfish, other small crustaceans, had begun to feed, leaving their skin marred and damaged. The most chilling detail, the one that spawned the most horrific initial rumors, was the condition of their skin. The natural processes of decomposition and the scavenging of the creatures had created marks that, to a first glance, looked like lashes, whiplash-like wounds. In our grief-stricken, paranoid state, some had immediately jumped to the worst conclusion, a fraternity initiation ritual gone horribly, fatally wrong. But it was nature, cold, indifferent, and brutal, that had done this. It was a fucked up, undignified, and terrifying way to die. There was no closure in the traditional sense. No dramatic confrontation, no solving of a mystery, just a devastating, empty finality. The university held a memorial service. We all went. We saw his family, their faces etched with a pain I couldn't even begin to fathom. We listened to people talk about the Kevin they knew, his laugh, his ambitions, the life that was supposed to be ahead of him. The image of him, not as I last saw him, but as my imagination conjured him in those final, lonely days in the water, is something that will stay with me forever. It was a stark, brutal lesson in mortality, one that every young person believes they are immune to until they're not. We went back to our classes, our parties, our lives in the bubble. But the bubble was different now. It was thinner, more fragile. The mountain on the edge of campus, once a beautiful backdrop, now felt like a silent, brooding sentinel guarding a dark secret. Every time I heard about someone going out to the springs, a cold shiver would run down my spine. This story isn't about a ghost or a monster. The horror here is real, it's tangible, and it's the terrifying randomness of tragedy. It's about how a normal weekend can turn into a nightmare, and how the people you barely notice in the hallway can leave a hole in the world when they're gone. R.I.P. Kevin. Your story is a grim reminder to hold your friends close and to never, ever take the peaceful rhythm of an ordinary day for granted.
Don't want to lose this channel and always be up to date with new videos? Then make sure to subscribe. The story continues, and it's only getting more interesting.